covering the world of professional wrestling from coast to coast. A show by members of the Busted Open Nation. Welcome to the Nation's Corner. Here are your hosts, the Nation's Corner crew.
What's up, pro wrestling fans? Welcome to the Nation's Corner. I am Front Row. With me, as always, is the greatest truck driver of all time, Tony Justice, and R.A. Davis. What's up, people?
What's going on?
What a week. Oh, man, we got a lot to cover tonight. Tony, I see you're on the road tonight. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm driving as we speak. No, I'm not. I'm in Curtis, Wisconsin. In between Green Bay and Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But there's a cool ass truck stop here. It's kind of in Amish country a little bit. I've seen some Amish people riding around in horse and buggies and all the mess. So hey, if they want to be on the show, hey, come on over here and be on the show. Hey, you.
Cue Amish Paradise.
Yeah. Right.
What's up, R.A.?
I'm doing pretty good, SSDD.
Yeah. So, Tony, I see you're not in a uniform tonight.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, man. Well,
no, he's not. I thought he was, but he's not.
I'm in my Stone Cold Broken Skull shirt, but I'm sporting
all right.
my pants, so hey.
That'll pass.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody in the chat. I see Brian's in there with us, Mongrovian Mike,
and Brian's listening straight from his new toilet.
He did say that, yeah. I was going to leave that in the chat, but
okay. Wow. The shit people type sometimes.
I'm telling you, that's insane. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we got a lot to cover tonight. Tonight's big pay-per-view, third anniversary of Mission Pro Wrestling's Welcome to the Jungle. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We covered it in more detail last weekend, but some breaking news in the last couple of days. Holidead is sustained an injury and is had to vacate her Mission Pro Wrestling title. So I have permission from the Mission Pro Wrestling brass to break some news tonight. Tonight at the pay-per-view, the original title match for the main event was scheduled to be Holidead versus Genocide for that title. Holidead defending, but with the vacant title, what are we going to do? And that's a casket match. That was advertised as a casket match, and that casket was donated by our own Sean. And shout out to Sean for donating that casket. But Sean didn't donate one casket; he donated two. So might as well use both of them, right? So tonight in the main event, there'll be, or earlier in the show, throughout the show, there's going to be a series of matches as part of a tournament to crown a qualifier for the number one contendership. But instead of one person, there'll be two finalists, and those two finalists will face Genocide in a triple threat double casket match, which is going to be pretty crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen a double casket match.
No,
so I'm sure they're going to explain more about it on the show. But it's pretty exciting, So all love and shout out to Holidead. Hope she recovers soon. She's a hell of a competitor, and I always love seeing her in the ring. And she's been a pretty great champion for Mission Pro. So all respect to Holidead. But okay, so let's talk about it a little bit. I was looking at the card lineup, and in this first round qualifier, we have Kylan King versus Caitlin Alexis. We have Jocelyn Navarro versus Alejandra De Leon. Jasmine Allure versus Michelle Green. Michelle Green, we talked about a little bit last week. Michelle Green's been training hard. We met her about a year and a half ago when she was training with Brian and Thunder. And super cool, super nice person, very, very good student. We were up till all hours of the night watching YouTube videos of different promos and matches and stuff. So she's a real student of the game. So there's going to be an interesting one. Jasmine obviously is a veteran of Mission Pro, and Michelle, she's going to bring it. She's a very tough physical competitor. We also have Bougie Reality versus Key Vibes and a mystery partner. I don't know if that mystery partner has been announced yet. Maybe Brian can keep me honest in the chat. I haven't seen an update as to who that mystery partner is going to be, but that's going to be for the Mission Pro Wrestling Tag Team Championship. And in that qualifying round, we also have Emmy Camacho versus the Woad. Woad's one of our favorite Mission Pro talents, and we've seen her just lay waste and just wreck people. One of our very own Mark Henry's favorites as well, as we can attest to. So it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool to see who emerges, what two competitors emerge to wrestle in that final match tonight. Off the top of your head, who do you pick for those two spots? I'll go with you, RA, first.
Well, obviously, first pick would be Kylan King, of course, because you know Kylan King and Genocide can put on banger matches. For the third person in the match,
Well, we've got some real talent in there.
Jasmine or La Rosa Negra.
How about you, Tony?
Yeah.
Well, look, I didn't see. Yeah, La Rosa's not in this.
La
She's
Rosa
not in
Negra.
this tournament? Okay.
No.
La
I don't
Rosa's
think
not
so.
in this.
Okay.
Sorry.
I would say Jasmine and Colin King.
Yeah, I think those are the obvious choices. There, Jasmine Allure is a former Mission Pro champion. Kylan King's just been lighting the world on fire. She goes everywhere and anywhere, and she's holds multiple titles now. I'm looking at this now. I see Jasmine and Woad, and I have no idea what's going on. But I see those two in that final match. Jasmine and Woad would make for an interesting pair to challenge. So we're going to be ending the show a couple minutes early tonight, so folks can get over to Title Match Network if you're not on the scene. I know there's some of our group is there. I think Garza might be there with his family. Hopefully they're out there having a good time tonight. And so shout out to all our Mission Pro Wrestling fam. They put on some just incredible shows, and I can't wait to get back to Texas at some point and see another one in person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so lots of stuff going on elsewhere in the world of pro wrestling. One of the things that I wanted to really talk about tonight was the continuation of WWE and the way that they've completely transformed their products and how we're viewing it lately. We talked a little bit about it last week, where Raw and SmackDown are now to the point where the time goes by so quickly. A 3-hour Raw doesn't even seem like 3 hours anymore. It used to feel like 4 hours. Now it feels like an hour and a half.
Right.
You get to the end of the show and you're like, oh my God, it's over. And every match is important. Every storyline has a meaning. And the way that the people are presented is makes sense. It's cohesive to me. So one of the things that really stuck out to me this week was the continuation of the story of Judgment Day and the smaller stories that they're telling within it. So you've got a couple of things going on there. You have Dom and Rhea, and then you have the beatdown of Edge, right? So let's start there. I wanted to get your thoughts on what we've seen so far, but I really want to talk about where we think it's going next. So, Tony, we'll start with you.
Yeah. I'm very surprised that how well they've made Dom out to be this badass just from turning on Ray at Clash at the Castle. The next Raw, he comes out with Rhea. Rhea speaking for him. I was fully expecting him to come out and refer to himself as Dominic Guerrero.
Yeah, me too.
But he just seems to fit right into the Judgment Day, and it seems to have. We're viewing the Judgment Day different now. Because before Dom, we were like, I don't see this taking off. I mean, there was something missing, and now that Dom is in it, it's like it's become the cornerstone for all these stories. And they did a good job, a good number on Edge, beating him down, and the involvement of Ray constantly trying to stop Edge from doing what he wanted to do to Dom for what he's done to him. It just makes you wonder, is there more to the story of Ray? Like, is Aaliyah going to come out? Is the mom going to come out and get involved somehow? Which will add more drama to the story. But I think that they've done a good job of making Dom out to be this badass, and he hardly speaks on the mic. And the only thing I didn't like about Monday was that backstage promo. What I didn't like about it was I saw the good intent of the promo, but you saw his eyes moving and like he was reading off of a
prompter
or something. I didn't like that. But other than that, I think they've done excellent with it.
Yeah, all right.
I agree. They have done real good storytelling, traditional storytelling that we've missed for a while in WWE. And next step I possibly see them doing is maybe either adding a new member or getting rid of someone, as they did with Edge,
Mm-hmm.
and then adding someone.
Well, so that's an interesting thing, because you have a faction with, you have a mixed, you have an intergender tag team faction, tag faction, right? Now you've got Hit Row, who also has,
intergender
men and women. So they're starting to build this.
And don't forget Maximum Male Models.
Oh no, I was forgetting them intentionally. Yeah. Okay, so this week they come out to this fanfare and all this other stuff. They're coming down the ramp, and Braun just comes and mows them down.
I love that.
That was awesome.
And the look on their face when they heard his music too, is like, oh shit.
I thought that was great. That was a nice touch, and the crowd seemed to enjoy it as well. So I'm very intrigued by where they're going with Dom. I saw some stuff online where people were saying, well, it should be Dom versus Ray, like next week on Raw or the next pay-per-view. No, there's so much story here. Like this should actually go all the way to WrestleMania. This is a story that you could tell over the next 6 months. Like, let's not rush this, people. Like, there's tons of mileage on here, especially with Edge out. So now Edge is out with injury. You wait a month or two, for him to come back from injury, and then you have Edge build his faction and then add Beth Phoenix into it. Come on, let's go. What are we doing here? Right?
Mm-hmm. Waiting. I mean, yeah, Dev. It's right.
Yeah. I have to give Mrs. Front Row a shout out. I didn't see her name in the chat when I was calling everybody out earlier, but I see her in there. She's there. She's over in the other room, so I know she's here.
But hey, you can at least say it's not Retribution.
That's true. It is much better than Retribution because of the people you have involved. You have some really high level talent and some great wrestlers and storytellers involved in this faction, and I think one of the things I like, and we're going to move on from this, but one of the things I really like is Damian Priest. We saw him as Punishment Martinez in Ring of Honor. He was great in NXT. And right from his call-up, they made him feel important, even during the Vince era. They gave him a big spotlight. He did that big storyline with Bad Bunny last year, which was a huge deal for him.
Had a title run.
Yep. And now here he is in one of the most heavily featured storylines in the company with Finn Balor and Rhea, and they just did the stuff with Edge, and it's like, okay, this is a good thing for him.
They're kind of like a modern day Shield in a way.
Yeah, I do agree with my wife that Punishment Martinez was a better name. Unfortunately, that was not his to own, so they had to give him a WWE name. But Damian Priest isn't bad. I've seen worse, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So we're talking about all the different changes and influences of Triple H and how he's made upgrades, right? We saw the return of Braun Strowman. We've seen the reemergence of Imperium, which I think is a big deal. like when Walter came up and they renamed him Gunther, people sort of scoffed at that. But my thing was, okay, they changed his name, but like they kept Gunther, Walter,
The
they kept his
character
character.
himself.
He was the same guy, the same ass kicker, and now you reunite him with Imperium, and they have the music, the intro, the whole deal. I think it all works. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
And
One
they
of the
all
other,
may have different names, but they are is the Imperium. I mean, the same group. They're not changed at all. They didn't change that. Not
Yeah.
like they did with Karrion Cross with changing his whole gimmick when they first brought him up.
yeah, like I understand they couldn't use Killer Cross, like they don't want a wrestler in a PG era
Mhm.
called Killer, and that he owns that anyway. That's his trademark. So I understand the name change, and when he came back recently, like that's the presentation of Cross and Scarlet that we should have seen when he came up
Mhm.
from when they came up from NXT, or she never did actually. She never actually
Yeah, she
debuted. This
never
was,
came with him. She stayed back in NXT.
and the fade to black with the black and white and all that stuff, like perfect. Just the presentation of him is of them is terrific. Um, but if you watched, and one of the other big things I think that we talk about is scripted promos and people not being given the opportunity to speak in their own voice. We saw a lot of people speaking in their own voices this week. Probably none so much as Kevin Owens.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit! Like that guy just went on fire. He cut a promo on Austin Theory.
Hey, Austin.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it was scathing, and that was like a guy that had just had enough. Like he was just fed up, and I really really liked it.
Which just real quick, speaking of Kevin Owens, was there anything ever resolved with when he punched Vince McMahon?
Kevin Owens, oh, he headbutted him, right?
Yeah, I had about anyone. I mean,
Yeah, that was Jesus. That was a long time ago at this point.
It's like 4
No, I
years
don't.
ago.
I know Vince
Yeah,
is
it was a while
gone, but
ago.
nothing was ever done with that storyline. It just kind of
Yeah, I mean, stuff used to fall by the wayside. I don't think you're going to see storylines just drop anymore. What I was surprised about with that segment, like Kevin beat the shit out of Fight Theory. Like he legit broke his nose up, and I don't know if it's broken, but like he was bloody and a mess. And
Mhm.
at one point, Theory looked legitimately angry, like he was fired up and throwing some haymakers back.
except
And
they had the people they had holding Theory back versus the people they had Owens holding Owens back. That
not everything's perfect, right?
But one thing about it, that whole thing that happened between Kevin Owens and Theory, I mean, they're already having a match coming up on Raw, and I'm immediately invested in that. Whereas before, you want to talk about Triple H's influence. Whereas before, they would just throw matches on the card, like tonight on Monday Night Raw, we've got so and so and so and so, and there's no story leading up to it. It's just there, And now
or
we've
you
got
had
story
Teddy
leading up
Long
to it.
booking tag team matches
Yeah.
Yeah.
or one-on-one with the Undertaker.
So yeah, I appreciate the getting us invested in stuff, especially with only a week to work with, and I'm already invested in it. So
Yep. Well, and so even little things like Triple H is a big proponent of giving opportunities to younger talent, right? So if you look at the segment with Almost where he squashed those two guys, right? Those were local enhancement talent, but those weren't just like local scrawny guys. In fact, one of the guys is his name on the show is Ryan Toombs, which is interesting because that's Roddy Piper's real name was Toombs, and but his name on the Indies is Jordan Oasis, and he's from FSW, Future Stars of Wrestling. And if you go and look at FSW's Twitter and look at some of the clips from him, he is a bad mother trucker. Like he is a brutal guy. So to give him an opportunity to at least appear on Raw is a pretty big deal. Rather than just picking like the scrawniest guy, he picked a guy who looked like he could at least get in there and wrestle, and he's a very good wrestler. So I like that touch.
FSW has several good wrestlers on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Lacey Ryan comes from as well.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, you mean Zoe Stark?
Or Zoe Stark, yeah. I still call her by her original.
One of the other influences that we're seeing is longer, better matches. When I say better, it's not a knock on the people who had great matches before. It's just that I feel like there's this new energy where people are going out there and just giving absolutely everything to put on the best matches. And you saw Sami Zayn and Ricochet have this opening match that was like, or this just, what was it, 20 something minutes long? Like, it was a long ass match.
Something like that.
And it was just terrific. But okay, and I want some opinions in the chat here about Sami Zayn, because we're going to talk about Sami now. Sami Zayn has been around a minute. He's been around a couple decades, right? He's been around forever. I genuinely think he's doing the best work of his career from an in-ring standpoint and from a character standpoint. What do you guys think?
You definitely can't call him generic. Oh,
No.
No. He's definitely having a chance to branch out his character now that he's involved with the Bloodline. And you just know that's a train wreck waiting to happen. You just know it, but it's got you, invested in watching. That's the best storyline going on in WWE right now, all across the board is the Bloodline. And I mean, every week they're coming out and they're killing it. Now with the addition of Solo Sikoa, and you just what they did last night with Solo wanting Sami at ringside with him and not his brothers, immediately then you'd think, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen at the end of the match? Something's going to go down or whatever. But I mean, if you pay attention to social media, where it's the pictures of the Usos and Roman Reigns when they were, and then he photoshopped himself into the picture. It was awesome. So yeah, I mean, he's doing the best work of his career, I think.
Yeah, and it's little things like they had the press conference today, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But at the press conference, they had the Bloodline on one side, and they had Logan Paul on the other side. Sami was there, presented in character as an honorary Us and all that stuff. Like, he shows up with them everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, you're gonna say
he wasn't sitting at the table, but he was standing at the table.
Yeah. So, and I think an aspect that made the Attitude Era so successful is there were main event storylines running throughout the shows. So if Rock and Stone Cold were in the main event, there would be bits and pieces of that story told throughout Raw or SmackDown or whatever. They're doing that now. They're doing that in the right way, where we saw little vignettes going through, like the appearance of Sami in the back, Sami's interaction with Jay, who is not cool with him, Jimmy's cool with him. Solo, for some reason, has taken a liking to him, and maybe that's because Sami keeps helping him out in the matches, to the point where when Solo was about to go out to defend his North American title, his NXT title, he told the Usos to stay back, and he took Sami with him. And I think that's going to either sow the seeds of discord within the Uso family, or it's going to give Sami an unrealistic feeling of importance.
Yeah.
But when Sami was getting beaten up, Jay was having a ball with it.
Mm-hmm.
At ringside.
Yep. So let us know in the chat what you're thinking about Sami, and more importantly, where are we going to go next with this? Roman's not on TV right now. He's got this pay-per-view match at the Crown Jewel, but he's not going to be on SmackDown probably a whole lot going forward. So now you have Solo as your singles guy, Sami as the singles guy, and you've got the Usos in their tag matches. How long will this story last with Sami being involved? I hope this goes all. This is another storyline that can just go for a long time. Maybe past Survivor Series, at least past Survivor Series, if not all the way to Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Now you have Paul Heyman back also to help,
help
with the storyline on TV. So
yep,
glad to see Paul Heyman back.
Yeah.
And
So,
Paul and Sami are bouncing off each other real well too.
Sammy, if you remember when Sammy was on Talking Smack with Kayla and Paul Heyman, that was one of the best segments. They worked so well together. They're both very quick. Paul Heyman is lightning fast, and Sammy can just bounce off of any of that stuff. So it's pretty cool. And we're talking about people who are speaking in their own voice. I was really impressed with Liv Morgan's promo. She hasn't really impressed me with a lot of promos up till recently, but in that backstage with Ronda, she spoke very low, very intentional, and very Jake the Snake Roberts-esque. You had to lean in and listen to what she was saying. I'm not saying she's at his level, but there's aspects of that
She
in
was
her
trying
tone.
to definitely pulling from that inspiration.
Yeah. And then Ronda in her most natural voice was like, "Oh, Extreme Rules match? That's your funeral." And she just walks away. And it was just one line, but I feel like we're getting a genuine Ronda recently. We're not getting that scripted.
We're
They
getting
were
the
terrible.
MMA Ronda, not the cartoon wrestler Ronda.
And Ryan McKinnell talked about it on Busted Open. He's been talking about it. He spent a lot of time around Ronda, and she's very snarky, and she will take a reporter to task. Like, she will cut a promo on somebody that's like pretty rude. I want to see more of that. Like, I want to see that Ronda on the mic.
Yeah. I mean, you want to see the realism. I mean, and Ronda is from what I've heard from people, Ronda is a natural heel, and let her be her on TV. There you go. You're getting the truest version of Ronda that I've seen in the WWE nowadays. So
yeah. So there's sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the best promos have always drawn from some realism, some touch or form of realism.
And this has been a big topic of conversation in our house, because I think my wife and I disagree on this point, or maybe to a certain extent, where realism will draw you in. Too much realism, and now you've got an actual problem with the talent. We've seen stuff with Thunder and Britt. We've seen stuff with other talents who have just gotten so real, and maybe some of that stuff hasn't been agreed upon. Okay, that's good for TV, and now the fans are all invested, but now you've got two talents who don't trust each other, and it's a problem.
right.
I doubt very much that would happen in Triple H's WWE. It would happen once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so when you're seeing all that realism from Ronda and KO and even Finn Balor's cutting promos in his own voice now, and I'm like, oh, where's this guy been?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've also given the mic in AEW to Cesaro.
Yeah,
when
and that's
WWE didn't give him the mic much.
Yeah, and that's a great segue rather. I think AEW oftentimes gives people too much freedom. I think in WWE they're given bullet points and go out there and here's what we need to accomplish. And I think in AEW, and I don't know, I'm not there.
Here's a mic.
But it feels like they're just told to go out there and promote a match and given not a lot of direction. And I hope that's not true. So we don't know.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about AEW, because I'm really interested in the way that some of these things are going. And I will say that I'm not totally enthralled by the stories in AEW right now. 6 months ago, they had the best stories going, and WWE was like, okay, great matches, but not a lot of stories. Now things have completely reversed for me, for my personal taste. When I watch Dynamite and Rampage, I enjoy the matches. I'm not terribly invested in the stories they're telling. And maybe you guys can smart me up. Maybe you have opinions that differ. But I'm not seeing a lot that makes me like super excited to see the following week.
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, I want to say the you've got we've had great matches on AEW. We'll talk about the card coming up on Wednesday here in a little bit. But that card right there is going to be killer. And there are some, like Eddie Kingston, Sammy Guevara. Eddie cut a promo last night. I didn't get to see all of it, but I saw that he was cutting a promo last night on Rampage, leading into the match they're going to have Wednesday. I mean, that's a story that's been told, but not on TV. It's like that's that realism thing, right?
Yeah, and Eddie cuts great promos.
Oh yeah. And one storyteller is out in injury right now, Thunder Rosa. She tells great stories.
Yeah, she's also a great storyteller.
But she's on the shelf right now. CM Punk is a great storyteller, but where's he at right now? The Bucks. I mean, people that are capable of telling great stories are not being featured on your television right now because they're either injured or whatever else. But yeah, I have noticed they switch in the momentum. Whereas, like Front Row said, 6 months ago, AEW was telling awesome stories. Now, it's like the pendulum swinging WWE's way. So, now it's just a matter of getting that pendulum to swing, keep on swinging like this. Because us as wrestling fans want to see the pendulum going like this, where both companies are getting the shine rather than one or the other. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and it's an ebb and flow. I'm pretty sure AEW is going to start figuring stuff out because if I'm Tony Khan, I'm looking at the product across the street saying, okay, they've always
They're doing something. So.
They've always had the right pieces, but now they've got people in a position to put everything together in a way. And let's remember that they don't go head to head with AEW. AEW and WWE are on different nights. Fans can enjoy everything. You can DVR it. You can we don't live
Fridays. But they're at
well,
time Fridays.
Well, but they're not head to head. So at no point are they competing for a time slot or for viewers. In fact, I would argue that SmackDown and Rampage help each other because now you have a 3-hour block of wrestling. If you're a fan, you've got a nice evening of 2 different products to watch.
Right.
I think it's probably a good thing. And to your point, Tony, like, yeah, Mrs. Front Row is 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of Tony Khan because he's given a lot of people opportunities. It's the number 2 product in the world, and we enjoy it. But I do think he's got to get his shit together because right now it feels like an indie show compared to Disney.
If you go by the storyline they're telling, there's dissension in the ranks.
Because there is.
And it's playing out on TV, so we're seeing like the behind the scenes and the in front of cameras at the same time a little bit,
Yeah, and I'd like to believe that all of that is storyline, that there's a mastermind behind all this, and there's dirt sheet stories that are being circulated to get the fans to buy into this stuff. But I think a lot of it's true. There's definitely stuff that we know to be true. So it is what it is. And to Tony's point, like on Busted Open yesterday, Thunder, I don't know what came across her, but man, she got pissed. Like she was talking about it and she dropped a bunch of F-bombs talking about how they need to give the women more time and they need to get the women's division more focus and storylines, and these 3-minute matches have to stop.
They gave them a time. They give them a set time and the set number of
yeah,
time.
The 9:23 slot. Yeah, it was 9:21 this week, but it still was like a 6 or 7 minute match on a 2-hour show, and then on Rampage
picture added to that.
Right, so half the match is in picture, and the match doesn't mean anything. You had Penelope Ford versus Willow Nightingale. I'm a huge fan of Willow Nightingale. We've seen her wrestle a ton of times here in Charlotte, and in Mission Pros, but it was like a 3-minute match. And Penelope Ford isn't Jade Cargill. Like she shouldn't be steamrolling people.
Right.
And to Deb's point, I'll put this up here, and I hope this is true. She says, I think AEW is low-key doing a great job of blurring the lines between real-life drama and kayfabe, and I agree with that. I think that part of it is real, and if they figured out a way to make that work for them, then that's even better. As long as nobody gets hurt, there's no like real-life drama where there's like someone getting hurt in the ring.
Obviously, because they're
but that's not because of like backstage drama. That's just accidents happen
in the ring. Yeah.
So to talk about the women's division, Hikaru Shida was supposed to be in this match this week, and it ended up being Toni Storm and Athena versus Serena Deeb and Britt Baker. It was a good match. It was fine, but Serena Deeb ended up getting the pin on Toni, which I thought was weird, having your champion, your interim champion, lose. But then they turn around and they take the same 4 people and they put them in the match next week against each other. Like, you have 20-something people on your roster and you're putting the same 4 people on TV every week.
Well, that's like putting people that are going to be going against each other in tag matches against each other. Like 4-ways are going to go in tag matches against each other.
It makes no goddamn sense to me, and I don't know what they're doing, but I hope they get their shit together, because at some point Thunder's going to get healthy and she's going to come back, and I'm going to feel bad for the people that are in her way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and so Deb's, and I will agree with Deb on this point. I love Penelope and Willow got a TV match, but there has to be a storyline. Yeah, the match meant nothing, and they're 2 talents that we like. I've seen Penelope Ford have street fights, like killer street fights. I've seen her wrestle some great matches. We've seen Willow wrestle some great matches, and then they get on TV, and it's like, all right, what are we watching? Like, this didn't mean anything to the women's division. That could have been a dark match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and my wife is right. It was fine. It was fine.
Effie is fine.
Yeah. Deb just made another point in the chat that I want to accentuate. I think the problem is that TK only knows how to book Britt. Well, that's because Britt is in Tony's ear telling him what she wants to do. So it's easy if you want to be everyone's buddy and friend rather than do what's best for your company. Then it's easy to book Britt because Britt knows what she wants.
Britt's really good at this.
Yeah, so I mean, she's everywhere. Like, she's at all the functions, at all the parties, all the events and stuff, and she's constantly, I'm sure, telling Tony, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want this, I want that. Tony's just going to give her what she wants.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
everything, including people's mouths.
I don't know what goes on behind the scenes or at parties, but what I will say is what we see on TV is both Jade and Britt constantly running down their division, and this is the parallel that I wanted to draw. We saw Bayley have a match with Raquel Rodriguez, okay, and the story that they're telling on commentary is that Damage Control is running down the division. They're just being shitty heels. But in the match, Bayley made Raquel look like $1 million. She worked really hard to put her over in that match, and they never discount the champions.
Yeah,
right.
Most of the time the heels are going away with their tail between their legs, but they may win the match, but they're still going away with their tail between their legs.
Yeah,
they're not just beating them and then beating them up and being, I'm everything. I'm the best.
And so we have Jade Cargill, who's going to face Diamante. We are big fans of Diamante. My wife has had Diamante land on her a number of times at Queens of Combat shows. Very solid girl. Very solid. But that match means nothing, and in no world does anybody think that she's going to beat Jade.
And as you pointed out, we didn't even know Diamante worked for AEW anymore.
I forgot. I legit forgot. She showed up on screen last night, and I'm like, oh, that's right, she works there. How cool. I love that for her.
Didn't somebody else land on your wife's lap? And was it NWA or?
Well, that was me. That was
it was you.
Rhett Titus.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Rhett Titus, when Austin Aries did the tope suicida to the outside, and Rhett Titus landed right in my lap, and I pushed against him to make sure he landed and didn't hit the chairs. And then Austin Aries shook my hand. I'm like, I don't like this guy, but I have to go on pay-per-view. Yeah. My wife says, Diamante has a hard chin. Yes, she does. Yeah, Tasha Steelz as well. Tasha Steelz and Diamante had a year-long feud, and we always ended up in the middle of it. I was doing a meet and greet with Tasha, and I got knocked out of the ring, and it was a whole thing. Only in the Indies can you do that shit. But if we look forward to the Grand Slam, like, there's some really good match lineup. Like
Oh,
these stories don't mean shit to me. But like Bryan Danielson versus John Moxley, okay, I'm there. You know, you've got Pac and Orange Cassidy. That's going to be interesting. And then they set up a feud last night, which I thought was a really smart thing to do. Like you said, Claudio got a chance to speak on the mic,
Mhm.
and Jericho interrupts him and inserts himself into the Ring of Honor. And Jericho even mentioned WWF and WWE, not in a negative way. Jericho specifically said those companies as a way to put over the titles that he once held.
Yep.
And I thought that was really important that he referenced them without shitting on the other companies.
And wait,
How
he's
do
a
you
heel. Wow, it can be done.
right?
Yeah.
And in that moment, he was telling Claudio that I'm better than you because I held these titles. Not, oh, those didn't mean anything, and that title does. It's just the way he did it was masterful.
And
So
WWE was the masters of not talking about anybody else's belts,
right.
any other titles anybody's held. That none of that existed when they joined WWE or left.
So let me
All
ask
that
you guys
mattered was
this:
WWE.
what if Jericho wins the Ring of Honor title? Does that help or hurt the title? Because he doesn't wrestle that style typically.
I think
But
it
he
helps
has,
it.
yeah.
It
He's
helps
wrestled
it
in
because
Japan. That's a strong style, and that's what ROH is.
That's true, but not in AEW. But yes, you're right. He has done it before. That's just not his typical style.
I think it helps it because of who's holding the title, Chris Jericho, and where he's been and what he's done in his career. Of course, that's going to put. I mean, same thing it did with AEW Championship when he won it. You know, it put a stamp of okay. Now we've got somebody with some eyes because Chris Jericho has a huge following not only in wrestling but in rock and roll because of Fozzy. Chris Jericho's involvement. He's a pop culture. Jericho is a pop culture icon, and I think he doesn't get credit for that. Whenever someone says Chris Jericho, he's recognized in all sorts of things. So having him hold your championship, it's going to mean something for Ring of Honor. Now, if that happens, what is Tony Khan going to do to help elevate Ring of Honor to where it needs to be? Okay, now you've got possibly Chris Jericho holding your championship. So Tony, what are you going to do? Where are people going to be able to see more Ring of Honor? The ball is in your court. So,
yeah, we're gonna say, Harry.
I was just gonna say that. I can't even remember what I was gonna say. Go ahead.
That's okay, because my wife pointed out the fact that Jericho was in fact in Sharknado, so he's got that going for him.
yeah.
Nice.
I mean, how can I forget Sharknado?
And it's not just because it's former WWE guys like most people will say they got, because if you look at it, you've got former WWE guys going for essentially AEW's top titles right now and ROH's top titles.
Well, here's an interesting thing for me. Like I look at that, I look at Jericho versus Claudio. I don't look at Claudio as an ex-WWE guy, even though he was there.
He had a lot of
there. He was there more recently than Jericho, and yet I look at him as a pure Ring of Honor guy because of his style and because of the way that he has spoken about the importance of him holding that title. He's been in the business almost 20 years, and this is his first world title. It's really friggin' important to him. That title means more to him than a storyline or a toy belt. That means a lot to that guy. So for me, I'm going to root for Claudio to retain that title because I don't think Jericho would be able to do as much for it as Claudio would going down the road. And I agree with you, Tony. I think it's great that they're putting Ring of Honor titles on TV. It's awesome, but at some point you have to actually put a TV show together because you have a brand. It's not really a brand,
right?
And you can't just go to YouTube or something like ROH needs its own time slot, own show, channel, own show.
So I want to point out something that I always see. When MJF cut his promo and then had to take time away, a week or two after that happened, nobody was talking about it. It was just old news. And as time went by, people were looking forward to him returning, and it was a big deal when he came back, and that's all cool. When CM Punk had this just recently with the press conference, it was a huge deal for like 5 or 6 days. And now, this week, nobody's talking about CM Punk. They know he's going to be away for a long time. So everybody just kind of moves on because that's in the past, right? And yet this week, I've seen on social media, everybody continues to talk about the champ, Thunder Rosa, every day, all day, dirt sheets, internet, and she's not on TV. So I think that it's going to be, Tony Khan has an opportunity for her return to be very important. We don't know how long she's going to be out. I know she's giving updates on her brand army and on her social media. But I just thought that was really interesting. And depending on how you, well, yeah, so all of that. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, and to Deb's point, they're doing a good job with the Ring of Honor titles because 3 of the last 4 shows did have Ring of Honor matches in the main event. And you mentioned it earlier, Tony, Eddie Kingston versus Sammy Guevara. Now, I believe that they hate each other. I don't know if they do or not. Like, I don't know those guys, but the way that Eddie speaks with such hatred, and not like wrestling hatred, like he genuinely seems like he hates this guy. So like that's the sort of realism that I love about Eddie's promos and his match style.
Right.
So do you think this, so I'm looking at this card, right? So we've got Dynamite next week. I'm going to run through it real quick. We're not going to touch on everyone. We've got Danielson versus Moxley. We've got Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland against the Acclaim, which is a rematch, obviously. The 4-way women's match we spoke about earlier, Claudio versus Jericho and Pac versus Orange Cassidy. That's on Dynamite this week. And then on Rampage, which has to be 2 hours, I would think, because there's 8 matches on the card. Action Bronson and Hook versus the Jericho Appreciation Society. I like the fact that Action Bronson's in here because he's a huge wrestling fan. I don't know the guy, but everybody seems to think he's cool. I mean, I've seen some of his stuff, but, you know, I haven't seen much about him. Sting and Darby versus House of Black, which is sort of weird because you got Buddy Matthews and Brody King, but obviously no Malachi Black as he's gone from company. So having a House of Black without Black is sort of weird to me.
Right.
Names
Eddie and Sammy. Yeah, it's weird. Jade versus Diamante, Rey Fenix versus Jungle Boy, Hobbs versus Starks, and Wardlow and Samoa Joe. This is interesting. Wardlow and Samoa Joe versus Tony Nese and Josh Woods. Josh Woods had a great showing this week. I'm glad to see him on my TV. Out of all of those matches, is there any specific story that makes you have to watch?
Well, the Hook and Action Bronson, but that's just it's not really a long-term story they've been telling. We know that Action Bronson trained Hook. They've been showing the vignettes, of him training with Action Bronson, which I like that, by the way. But to be honest, out of all those matches you just named, I'm excited for the Sting and Darby Allin versus Brody and Buddy Matthews.
Okay, I mentioned a bunch of great matches. Is there any match that you're absolutely intrigued by from a storyline perspective where you have to see somebody win?
No.
And that's a problem, right? That's a problem that you have 4 hours worth of TV booked on 2 big pay-per-view quality shows with all these great performers, and none of us care. Like, we're going to watch it because it's going to be fun, but it's fast food at this point. You eat it and forget about it.
And we all have opinions of who the outcomes should be, but they may not necessarily go that way, and it really don't matter if they don't. Just play it out next week or whatever.
Yeah. I will say the only exception to that to me is everything they're doing with Blackpool Combat Club makes a lot of sense. It's a faction that has deep roots because all of those guys know each other except for, Wheeler Yuta, but they've done a really good job of making him feel important. And, him winning, him going over in the I believe, and Neil will have to keep me honest. He was Best of Super Juniors. He was in New Japan. He's a very talented wrestler. We've seen him live on local shows here, and to see the stuff that he's done on TV, I'm super happy that he gets to be part of this high-profile story with those guys. So to me, that is a story. That is a group. It's not Bloodline level, but like that's probably their best cohesive story going in the company right now.
Right. I agree.
So, and they also have this golden ticket battle royal. I have no idea who's in it. I don't think they've announced who's in the match, or if they have. Yeah, Neil's keep me honest. He did really well in the Best of Super Juniors. So it's Will, damn it. So I'm excited for the matches, but I just wish that they would make me feel something for the stories that they have going into them. And that's one of the things that really strikes me about the WWE stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So what else have we seen this week? And I know we're gonna wrap up in a minute because I want folks to get a chance to get over to Title Match Network and get set up for the Mission Pro pay-per-view. But any last thoughts before we give everybody a sign off here?
I'm looking forward to 2 moments next week. One, I believe we're going to see new World Tag Team Champions in the Acclaimed, and they're going to have an amazing moment there in their home turf.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to see who's going to become the World Heavyweight Champion.
Which I believe will be Bryan Danielson. I think it should go on him more than Moxley. Disagree with me? I don't, But in my opinion, it should go on Bryan over Moxley because Moxley's held it multiple times already and not really. He's had good matches, but other than that, not really done a lot with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Mox as a character doesn't really need a title, but neither does Bryan.
No.
Which is sort of a weird position to be in,
Yeah. There's really no one right now that needs the title at that level. I mean,
it will definitely be Blood.
Yeah.
Mongrovian Mike, bully with the shout out.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Mongrovian Mike hanging out with Bully Ray tonight. Awesome. So yeah, real quick, like we had a whole bunch of the Nation's Corner crew all over the place. Deb and Seth are out in Ocean City. They're coming back from vacation. Steven was out in Ocean City seeing a couple bands. Guido's down in Florida on vacation. I mean, people are everywhere.
Yeah.
It's been a busy week.
Yep. Nation's
I was
Corner
home.
Location.
I had surgery this week. Very exciting. Just eye surgery. Everything's good. Okay, so we're going to give everybody a couple minutes here to go get ready. Where can everybody find you guys on the socials?
Go ahead, Art.
Head RA on almost every social media platform.
Cool.
Or search RA
Johnny?
Davis and you can find me.
Well, you can find me at Tony Justice, AJFA, and if you're a Metallica fan like I am, you know what that means. And I also want to give another shout out to our very good friend Sean Scythe, who donated the 2 caskets to Mission Pro. You can find him Twitter and Instagram at Sean Scythe. So appreciate you, Sean.
Yep, we appreciate it. I am PW Front Row on all the socials. You can find us on Twitter at Nation's Corner and across all other platforms at The Nation's Corner. Folks, appreciate everybody joining tonight. Hope you have a great weekend, and we will see everybody next week.